Yeah, hi. Good morning to everyone. So, is it audible now? Okay, thank you. Okay, so see here now, what we did yesterday, we will try to recollect once and we will start creating API gateway for application in today's session. Okay, so yesterday, what we did here, it is we created total 3 micro services as part of our architecture. As part of our project, when we are building a project, if you are if you are assuming like that, we created three microservices. So as part of these 3 microservices now, we are making a microservices architecture project by following these 3 microservices. What are the challenges we are having when we are maintaining multiple applications under one microservices architecture project? So what are the challenges we used to generally face? Common challenges or common problems when we are having multiple web applications under, when you created applications as a microservices or under microservices architecture, what are the common challenges we have, common problems we have? So how to rectify all those problems, how to solve all those issues? Okay, how we are going to make sure dynamic behavior and with respect to a couple of other things, we will see one by one. So as part of the yesterday, we discussed, for example, once I created all my 3 microservices application. So we know that we have a option called, we are having a feature called as scale up. We can scale up the number of microservices based on the traffic or based on the usage. We can scale up n number of instances or not. For microservice 1, microservice 2, I can maintain 5, I can maintain 10, I can maintain 15. For another microservice, the number of instances. Based on the traffic, based on the usage of that functionality, we can increase, we can decrease the instances for that respective microservice, right? So this process will be called as increasing, decreasing. This process will be called as scale up. Generally, the terminology we have to use scale up. Okay, so we can scale up the services. So that means we can increase, we can decrease based on our, it's all about traffic, the usage, whatever it is, requirement hour, we can say like that. Now, okay, fine. Whenever we started user microservice into 3 instances, 3 different port numbers, order is going to have different port numbers. Okay, and similarly notifications, payments, different applications, different port numbers with respect to different instances. So even if you see here, we are also order 2 instances, payment 2 instances, user 3 instances. So can we send request to all these, any of the instances out of all these instances generally manually? Yes, I can send. Simply, if I want to send a request to 8001, then I will give port number as 8001 here. If I want to send 8002, 8002. If I given 8003 level also I can send a request. So total, how many applications you deployed in this case with respect to the user microservice? 3 times you deployed same user application. 3 times. That is what the meaning of instance. 3 times you deployed same user project. That is what the meaning of 3 instances here it is. Okay, so fine. Like that, whenever I have number of instances and we take in a use case like user service running on 3 port numbers, order running on the 2 port numbers, and payment service running on the 2 port numbers with this all context paths, and we were able to test also. When you are sending request individually with respect to port numbers, we were able to test it where we can see the expected result. But the point here it is, when it comes to the auto scale up, so we don't know at what time which microservice is going to be used more, the functionality and which microservice we have to increase, or maybe which microservice instances we have to decrease. So in such case, are we having any limitation with respect to port numbers? No, right? I don't know how many instances I will increase by end of the day. I don't know how many instances I will decrease by end of the day automatically. And I don't have control of port numbers which are being occupied, which are being not occupied. So then we should not make sure any request coming from the client side, the request should be executed always from the available instances, And we understood one more problem also with respect to port numbers. For example, generally we discussed yesterday that point only, gateway, something like that. Okay, so if you don't have, you want to access user microservice functionality / registration from the front end or a client application. So then here, how many port numbers available? 3 available, 8001, 8002, 8003, something like that. Then front end level, if they return functionality, so they will need always host number with respect to port number or not, right? So then how will you, what will you say to the client application, which port it has to be utilized? So it's a very difficult, right? So that means we cannot say like 8001, we cannot say like 8002, because today it might be 8001, tomorrow it might be 8002, or I can increase 5 more instances, or I can decrease the 5 more instances. So I can maintain 10 to 15. But when it comes to the front end logic implementation level, did they maintain 5 to 10 like port numbers for single API URL? No, right? It's very difficult. We should not. Okay, even they will not accept. They will say like, give me only one URL. Out of that, what you will do inside, you can do that. So in such case, we are using a concept called as API gateway. So now gateway is the front end, front controller or front layer in entire microservices architecture. In entire microservices architecture, as a backend application point of view, see, microservices is all about backend or front end. Mostly backend functionality point of view will implement, right? So whenever it comes to the backend application functionality, and whenever a request coming from the client, so what is the first contact? What is the first contact as part of microservices architecture? API gateway. So API gateway will coming into the picture first, and then from there, so somehow we have to make sure the requests are routed to the respective microservices from the available instances. Okay, so how it will be happen, we will try to understand step by step. Now what API gateway here it is saying? Create a web application, okay, with functionality called as API gateway. So we have a libraries already, or we have already predefined functionalities with respect to API gateway, config server, all these things provided by the Spring framework. We will come to that point now. So simple, on a high level, what gateway is saying? Create a gateway application and make, anyway, for every web application, we will give a port number or not? 100% we will give a port, we have to give a port number. Now it is saying like, create a host name, create a web application and assign a port number, and definitely we will have a host name, and share it with client applications. That API gateway URL combination, and it's not like by blindly we will share it. So before that, what you have to do is you have to configure some information like this. Inside where? API gateway, all microservices instances information you have to configure inside the API gateway configuration level. Then you will tell to the client application, for all user related REST services, send a request like, like this. And in case if it is order related, localhost :8888/order/create. So here you will give all these REST services by including what here? The host name and port number of the API gateway application. So now whenever this request came to the backend application from the client, first it will reach to the API gateway this time. So as part of the API gateway, we made a configuration like this. Okay, as part of the API gateway, with respect to order, I given this configuration internally. Okay, now what API gateway will do? API gateway will identify how many instances available. So how many available? 2 instances available. 2 instances available, right? So out of 2, which one I have to choose now? A kind of ambiguity or right? Out of 2 or more than 2, which one I have to choose? So API gateway will apply a default concept called as default technique or concept, whatever we can say. It is called as what it is? Load balancing. So there is a concept called as load balancing. I will try to give you a small idea what is the load balancing. You can imagine or you can understand with your common sense also what is load balancing. Can you guess? Load plus balancing. The lot of load coming, lot of people are coming. So for that, what we did yesterday, we added number of counters, right? So we are balancing the load or not. I mean, we taken an example yesterday. We are conducting an event. So many people are coming. So then to maintain that load equally, what we are doing? We maintain n number of counters and we are saying like go to counter number 1, go to counter number 2, go to counter number 3. Like that, we are giving instructions so that the people are reaching to that respective counters or not. So you are managing the load balancing or not. I mean, you are managing the load or not of the people. So that what is the advantage? You can give performance with respect to people. People will satisfy with your actions. That means they can quickly complete their work. 1,000 people standed on the line for one counter. So how much time it will take to complete all 1,000 people works? By assume it is taking until evening 6 p.m. But when you added number of counters and you are doing same thing, then you segregated 200, 200, 200. Then it will be completed by maybe maybe by afternoon, right? So these things will happen in our real life or not. So that means what you are doing here, you are reducing the execution time or not. And at the same time, you are making satisfied with respect to people or not. They are okay, right? So same kind of concept here also. Now, what is going to happen with respect to load? Yeah, port numbers managing is not only that. We will come back to that. So what is the load balancing here? It is, for example, with respect to order, how many instances available now? 2 instances available. Now what gateway will do here? It is, once the request is received and it identified as 2 instances available, so it will apply a load balancing. So how load balancing will work? Okay, there are some algorithms available. Even we don't need to worry about those algorithms. These are all internally already implemented by the Spring Gateway application or Spring Gateway module internally. So they applied a lot of functionalities or algorithms to calculate the usage of an instance, the usage of an instance. For example, assume instance 1 is already dealing with 2 requests and instance 2 dealing with the 0 request. Now, as part of the load balancing, what they will apply here, it is, what is the use of, so internally, these are all things will happen, guys. I'm just giving you things. We don't need to worry about anything. It's all internal process. So they will identify which instance is having less amount of traffic or more amount of traffic. Less amount of traffic, that right? So that I can route request to that respective instances. Wherever it is having less amount of requests or less amount of traffic, so that I have to find out. So what they will do internally here, it is, they will use somehow processes, how many processes are running, what is the CPU usage, what is the RAM usage, like that. So it's all about somewhat they will apply some calculations and they will find out they got it is busy with 30%. I mean, finally they got a result as 30%. Now here they got result as 10% with default process and everything. Now out of 2, which is having less traffic? Second one is having less traffic. So that now request will route it to the second instance. Now, once request is reached to the second instance, it will be executed. The REST service will be executed and you given response back to the again client, and client will forward that, gateway, and gateway will forward that request to client. Okay, these are all client. Okay, now assume one more request came from one more client, or maybe from the same client. So what will happen now? Again, it will identify two instances, and it will identify which is having less amount of traffic. So assume this is applying the calculation, and it found this is again 20%. So now again, out of two, which is less traffic is it is having internally? So again, second instance, right? So again it will choose second instance only. So then again, the request will be routed to the second instance. Now again, what third request came. So by the time it reached to the 35%, the usage or internal processes, all these things, then which instance is having less traffic now? First one. So now this time the request will be routed to the first instance. So like that, an internal concept of, so in interviews they will ask you guys, this is the one of the most important thing also, how we are managing the load, okay, how we are managing the request in your microservices architecture. So there are two things. One is the request always coming to the gateway. So inside gateway we have a concept called as default load balancing. So it's a by default coming load balancing as part of the API gateway. So you can tell them like, we are using API gateway load balancing by default, whatever came as part of the API gateway application. So internal it is always calculating, or internal it is always making or enabling the load balancing. So we are not doing any external frameworks, or we are not using any external libraries with respect to load balancing. So sometimes very huge projects, maybe, okay, they will add load balancing with respect to some third party frameworks also, or with respect to some third party libraries. So Spring Gateway by default providing gateway, load balancing or not? First question is Spring Gateway application, Springboot Gateway application by default enabling or providing load balancing technique or not? Yes, by default it is providing. That's what we are discussing. Sometimes assume this load balancing is going to work as expected. 70 to 80 to 90% of people will use default load balancing only. But in very rare cases, that in very huge level of applications, okay, so they will start using some third party libraries where, okay, with respect to load balancing, and that load balancing framework will work more efficiently than this default one. So that's why couple of projects, what they will do, they will use some external load balancing frameworks. They will integrate external load balancing frameworks into this cloud gateway level. So this API gateway level. So, but you don't worry about externals. Most of the times, okay, people will use default load balancing only. So there are some other things also with respect to load balancing. Ribbon something is there. So this one ribbon is some, at one point of time it is old one given supported by the Spring, but nowadays it's not. I'll show you as part of the gateway itself. I don't know how to get it. See, don't worry about all these things. That's what I'm trying to say. By default, already gateway itself providing coming with default load balancing. I'll show you that. I'll prove you that. Okay. So just wait for some time. For that, we have to involve one more component called as service registry. Then all the things I can show you practically. So you can tell them like, we are using default load balancing available as part of the gateway. Oh, okay, even as a fresher point of view, if you are saying that, that is very much appreciated. Okay, so fine. we will see that how it is working load balancing automatically, whether it is true or false. We will see everything by executing practically. Okay, fine. Second, now let's start introducing what it is. API gateway. So now you are understanding why they given name as API gateway. Why? API is first of all what? The number of group of REST services. So collection of REST services will be called as API in this scenario. In this scenario, some other scenario, API will be different again. Java API means the documentation, list class, all this. In this scenario, it's all about collection of REST services, what you implemented as part of your microservices, overall microservices. So now gateway is nothing but kind of gate. So that means all APIs should be passed, all API calls, all incoming API calls should be passed always via gateway. So that's why they given naming as API gateway here it is. Okay. Now fine. How to create API gateway and all we will try to understand. So before understanding about it, these things, let me open one more time architecture. Yeah, if you see here, this is what we are discussing right now. We are understanding about API gateway right now. Fine. And after that, we will move to the service registry. So somehow we will make a relationship between these two. Then only we can see the default load balancing coming into the picture automatically. We will see that step by step. We will come back. First, we will focus on API gateway. Okay, fine. And here, before entering into the API gateway creation, I have to introduce a terminology or I have to use a I have to introduce this one called as Spring Cloud. So you will here now onwards, we are going to see a terminology called as Spring Cloud. Okay, so whenever we are creating API gateway or whenever we are creating service registry or config server as part of microservices architecture, we are going to see a terminology called as Spring Cloud. So what is the meaning of Spring Cloud? Here it is. So first of all, Spring means framework. Okay, whatever we know, it's all about framework. Cloud means, what is the cloud you know as of now? What is cloud? First of all, I mean, cloud means, tell me in the technology point of view. Yeah, virtual space, cloud computing, you know all these things, right? So any examples? See, nothing. Cloud is nothing but what? You, instead of you are maintaining your own system, someone else is maintaining a big system with big configuration and you are buying some space from them. And for monthly, you are paying the amount. That is all about the cloud. It's not like in the cloud, they are doing something. Okay, on the land only, they are also built a big computer. Only thing is, you are buying some space from them and you are paying amount to them. So what are the advantages with that? Why people are worrying about the cloud nowadays? I mean, why so many companies are acquiring services of cloud? Why can't they use their own computers? It's all about number of services also, or there are so many reasons. For example, I'll give you in a 1 or 2 minutes. Assume I have my computer here and my computer is having a lot of useful information. Okay, it is involving a lot of useful information, services, projects, all these things. Somehow, it's all my computer. So I want to protect my computer. What are the things I have to take care then? So many things I have to take care. I have to take care of the network security. I have to take care of the project security. I have to take care of the database security, right? I have to take care of the backup. Sometimes hard disk may fail, right? So I have to worrying about the backups. So, and as well as couple of other functionalities from all these things, I have to worry about always. And at the same time, to maintain my computer 24/7, it's up and running. What I have to do? I have to make people recruited and who are going to monitor my computer always. It is up and running 24/7. So I have to take care of network. I have to take care of power supply, all these things, right? So it is unnecessarily involving. Your focus is what? Business running on the laptop. But what you are worrying exactly? Failures of the networks, failures of the powers, or failures of the backups, or some other security threats. or some extra services what you want. Okay, so these are all things you are worrying about. For that, what you are doing, you are recruiting people or you are getting things from the externally and you are, okay, maybe I mean, you are just integrated everything around your computer. But now, at the time, what these people thought, they are building, okay, big servers, and they are saying like, we are taking care of security, we are taking care of backup, we are taking care of everything. If you buy space from me, okay, I will give you whatever services you want, okay, and I will charge only up to that. But along with that, I will give you benefits like I will protect your applications always, okay, and I will provide you backup always. If anything failure, I will take care of the backups. I will take care of the network security. I have experts, security experts, network related, application related, database related. I will take care of the network failures. I will take care of the backup failures. I will take care of everything. So only thing is what you have to do, you have to pay the amount, deploy your application, remaining all things, we will take care. Then what you will choose then? What you will choose then? And you are not maintaining a physical space also, right? Generally server rooms will be very big. So you are not maintaining anything. You are not worrying about your server because the cloud computing agencies are providing a number of services with all the things. So only thing is what you have to do, you have to pay monthly charges or something like that, hourly, whatever it is. Now assume when you maintain in the first case, assume you are getting per hour $200 cost, per hour $200. Now that too, you are getting limited number of services. But when you move to the cloud computing, they are offering, okay, with extra features per hour with $100. Then what you will choose? Cloud, right? So it is saving $100 per hour, as well as cloud computing providing n number of extra services also with respect to different offers or something like that. So that's why people are moving to the cloud computing or cloud applications or whatever you can say. So that is all nothing but the cloud. Don't think like cloud is nothing, something else. Okay, simply we are buying space from others instead of we are maintaining our own servers, our own our own databases, our own environment, physical environment, all these things. At one point of time, even 10 years back when I'm working also, at the time, cloud is not that much popular. Wherever we will go, are working on any real-time web application, the deployment servers is always physical servers. Physical means, that is also physical only, cloud also somehow. But with respect to us physical, so how? We will see our server where we are deploying our applications. We know that it's available under our premises only, our office premises only. Okay, the client premises only, the server rooms, all these things. Now it is moved to the cloud. We don't need to maintain server rooms. We don't need to maintain anything. So it's all we are buying services from the other agencies called as cloud computing agents, AWS, GCP, Azure, all these things. That is what the cloud here it is. Okay. Okay, fine. Now at least you understood the cloud. Yeah, rental basis, billing basis, whatever it is. But if you are having idea, good. So anyone thought earlier like cloud is nothing but they are doing something on the cloud? Even I thought in my earlier days. I'm frankly telling you. So what is this cloud? When I was as a student, I used to feel like cloud means what? What they are doing on the cloud. Okay, so don't worry. Sometimes we will get this kind of silly doubts, no problem. Is Drive also some type of cloud? Yeah, Google Drive is also some kind of cloud. We are buying this space. We are using things. Cloud is providing only storage, but AWS will provide storage, servers, services. They will give you so many things. Okay, so that's what. But yeah, kind of example, infrastructure, whatever it is. Okay, now let's come back and conclude the point of Spring Cloud. So that means now in this case, is it like similar to AWS Cloud? Or what it is, just remember this point. It will be a interview question in interviews also. So they will confuse you. We will see Spring Cloud. For example, I'll show you first and then I'll come back to this point. For example, I'm creating a gateway application now. So what you have to do is, I'll show you first where the Spring Cloud is coming, then we'll come back and we'll discuss. Then we can easily understand. Okay, file, new, Spring Starter project. So what you have to take? New Spring Starter project. Fine. Next, you can give any name here. Okay, you can give project name, like service name, whatever it is, Flipkart Gateway, or you can give any name. Next, so here what you have to choose. That is what the point here it is. Now, if you observe here, there are so many sections available under this predefined starters, right? There are predefined sections available with collection of predefined starters. So see, there are nowadays Springboot is adding so many things related to artificial intelligence also. So how to integrate your Springboot application with ChatGPT, Gemini, all these things you can do from here. All popular artificial intelligence integration you can do here. OpenAI. OpenAI is nothing but, yes, exactly. So you can integrate ChatGPT applications from your Springboot also. So that from the REST service, you can enter what is so and so prompting you will have, right? What is so and so, so then that will be sent it to ChatGPT once you integrated ChatGPT. Now ChatGPT will process your prompting, it will give response, and you will hold that response and you will display to the front end. Like that also you can integrate the ChatGPT, all these things. Okay. So developer tools. Okay, I don't want to discuss all these things. But don't worry about every section, every starter what you are seeing here. Frankly, I'm telling you, only 5 to 10% every human being will know what are available here it is. These are all things are group of starters taken by considering thousands of projects. By considering thousands of projects. But as a human being, how many projects we will work? Probably by the time of retirement, maybe 10 to 15, even very less than 10 also. Right? So that's why don't worry about whatever you are seeing the list here. You should know everything. Okay, now let me see here. So what is this? Spring Cloud circuit breaker, Spring Cloud config, Spring Cloud messaging, Spring Cloud discovery, Spring Cloud routing. So this is what this Spring Cloud I'm talking about right now. So what is this Spring Cloud? What we are doing here it is, we have to understand. Now see here, Spring Cloud routing. So that is what the functionality of API gateway or not? Request routing. Request routing is the main functionality of API gateway or not? So here I will take API gateway. See, they are giving somehow an external component called as load balancer as a different starter, but we are not using it by default. Already gateway is also having internally load balancing. We will see that. In case if you want any other thing like cloud load balancer or any something other third party frameworks, they will provide you the document how to integrate their framework along with your Spring Cloud gateway. They will provide you the document. You have to follow the document. You have to follow those steps and you have to add it. Okay. So I'm just taking right now gateway. So gateway, what they are saying, see here it is gateway definition given by the Spring here, provides a simple, effective way to route APIs in servlet based applications, provides cross-cutting concerns to the API such as security, monitoring, and resilience. Okay. So that's what we will apply security as part of the gateway level. We can take care of monitoring metrics, everything by including API gateway level, and resilience is all about stability, all these things. Okay. So now my point here it is, what is this cloud and what we are selecting here? Gateway. Okay, so what? Okay, let's take only one dependency called as gateway. There you don't need any other dependencies. If you want, you can add one more called as dev tools. In case if you want to change anything in future, it has to be reloaded. You can add dev tools also, but dev tools is always a mandatory starter. No, right? So remember that. There are people in interviews, they are saying like dev tools is mandatory to create a web application. No, there are students. I faced those kind of people also. So they are saying like dev tools is the mandatory starter to create a Springboot web application. Mandatory? No, right? And that too, dev tools. Can I add in the Spring Core module? How? Yes. That's all. So what you will do, dev tools can we add with the Spring Core module? Spring Core module is nothing but a simple main method, right? You will execute immediately, it will terminate. Web application is nothing but web application is going to terminate once you executed the request. For only one request? No, right? It will be available lifetime. It will be available, right? So when you added the changes, automatically again your Tomcat server will be restarted. For restarting purpose, they given the dev tools. To restart your web application purpose, they given the dev tools. See, small things, but that will make whether you are good or bad with respect to practical knowledge. So these things will specify whether you learnt concepts in by-hearted manner or in a practical manner with your common sense, all these things. Okay. Okay. So let's take Spring Dev Tools in case if you want. Next. So there are two dependencies already. Two starters I have taken. The most important one here it is gateway. It's an optional one. Okay. So something it is getting created, we will see, and then we will understand what is Spring Cloud here it is. Okay, let it be import. So I'm telling you one more time, when you are using this Spring Cloud starter, gateway starter in your project, what you have to do? Once you are going to home, once you are practicing from your computers, today you are using a new module called as gateway or a new component called as gateway. For that, at that time, what you have to do? Connect your laptop to internet. Okay. So if you are not connecting, what will happen? Then from where it will get the all jar files? It will not get from the cloud automatically. So via internet, internally it will go to the Maven repositories. The group of dependency jar files will be downloaded into your computer. So then next time onwards, it will be available in your local folders, in your local computer. So anyone knows where it will be available? Students? M2, where it is that M2? So even you can see from here also. Okay, Maven dependencies, here you can see the path where that jar file is available physically in your computer. C drive users, delete username under .m2 folder. So inside that, you will see all your downloaded jar files. But when you are doing the first time, you have to connect it to the internet. And don't say like my application is not working and it's not showing anything. Yeah, M2 is good. So that too, M2 is created always inside the users folder most of the times by default. Okay. So in case if you are having confusion, go to Maven dependencies. Here it will show you the path where your jar files available. Okay, fine. Now let's go back to the Flipkart gateway. What is created first we will try to understand and then we will move to the implementation. Okay, if you see here, so Springboot starter parent, we discussed this in day one as part of the Springboot. So now this is representing this application created with which framework? Springboot framework. So it's a starter parent. So these are all child starters, like the number of modules what you taken. So nothing but Spring API gateway application implemented by using which framework again? Spring Gateway is running on Spring Boot framework only. Gateway is implemented with which framework? Spring Boot only. Okay, it's running again on the Spring Boot only, fine. But my point here it is, what is this org.springframework.cloud? Why they are using always a terminology called as cloud here? Why not in a regular web application, if you go to the order microservice, it is a pure Spring Boot application or not? Right? If you go here, yes, framework wise, this is also Spring Boot application only. But when it comes to starter dependencies, what is this? org.springframework.boot, Springboot, right? But when it comes to the today onwards, in couple of places you are seeing instead of boot, they given what? Cloud. So what is the meaning of cloud? What is the, combination of this Spring Cloud? Now that is what the point I asked here it is. So it's not like similar to cloud computing, guys. Spring Cloud is not cloud computing concept here it is. So here their intention here it is. Okay. So is it similar to, okay, the first question is it similar? Is it similar to, okay, cloud computing like AWS, all these things? Yes or no? Yes or no? Is it similar to cloud computing like AWS, GCP, all these things? No. Yes, that's the point I told you. Then what it is? See, their intention here it is simple. The Spring Boot idea here it is. Microservices nowadays got popular from last 10 years or 15 years, right? Last 10, 15 years onwards, it is getting popular. And even cloud computing is also getting popular from when? Almost from last 10, 15 years only. Before that, we don't have anything. And most of the times, microservices architecture in any organization, even in my current project also, we are going to deploy our microservices, or we are going to make, the services availability always on the cloud environment. So that means your microservices are going to be deployed on cloud environment level like AWS, GCP, all these things. So what you are doing, your microservices project, you are deploying on cloud environments, AWS, GCP, all these things. Even in my current project also, we are having around 50 to 60 microservices, right? So every microservice we are making deployments on the AWS cloud environment. We are using AWS for the cloud. So that means these guys are not using physical servers. They are not maintaining infrastructure on their own. So they are just making payment. They are paying amount to the AWS and they are occupying their services and their memory. For that, these guys are paying amount to the AWS in my current project also. So microservices architecture is defined even by considering cloud computing also. To utilize the services of cloud computing, to make sure compatible with cloud computing, the microservices architecture is implemented, and that is how microservices architecture is got popular. And there is a, so that's what, there is a relation always in between couple of other things. Microservices is nowadays being used by so many business people or business applications, and those applications we are most of the times deploying on cloud environment. People are not maintaining their own servers, all these things. Now here, that's why what Spring Boot thought with a new thought, like why we have to see until this order service, leave about, if I consider this regular web application, if I written all the logics inside this Spring Boot framework or in a regular web application, can I make a Spring Boot web application as a monolithic application? Yes, if you written all the functionalities inside one Spring Boot application, it will become monolithic, right? So here their idea here it is, they are supporting, so I will give you now, Spring Cloud here it is supporting cloud based applications. So that means when it comes to microservices, with Spring Boot, to differentiate the regular web application from the Spring Boot, and to differentiate microservices projects or microservices, we are creating that two microservices components. What we have, guys, like what we know from this architecture. So if you see here, this is all about a microservices component or not. So as part of microservices architecture only, we are using all these things. For example, assume it is a monolithic application. So are you going to use API gateways, all these things? No, right? Config server, service registering. So that's why what these guys have thought, whatever the components or whatever the functionalities, is being supported with respect to microservices. Those are all functionalities they define in a separate, okay, library called as Spring Cloud. Under the Spring Cloud, they created all these components. So they are simply segregating. If you want only pure web application functionality or JPA functionalities, you have to use the starters or modules from the library called as Springboot. In case your project is involving microservices architecture and you have to support all your Spring Boot applications as a microservices, okay, as a microservices, then when you are introducing these components, you have to use the starters from the library called as Spring-Cloud. So here, their intention here it is, Spring Cloud is supporting cloud-based applications. So that means in future, whatever the microservices you are implementing, whatever the Spring Boot applications you are implementing, in case that Spring Boot application has to maintain relationship with AWS, I mean, not maintaining the relationship, you are making your applications are deployed with respect to cloud environment. Those are all things they given under the library called as Spring Cloud Library. So that's why they given Spring Cloud is not like cloud computing. Spring Cloud is all about supporting Spring Boot applications are configurable and deployable or compatible with respect to cloud computing. So that is what the meaning of Spring Cloud here it is. If you go here, see, always go through the documentations. Okay, if you see here, Spring Cloud, see, these are all things coming from the Spring Home, I mean, Spring Company. Okay, whatever you can say, VMware or some, now it is handling by the VMware. But these are all things, okay, or the products or whatever it is coming from the Spring framework. So Spring Boot, Spring framework, Spring Data. What is Spring Data? JPA, all these things. Spring Cloud. Now the things what we are going to discuss, gateway, service registry, all these things, circuit, okay, circuit breakers, all these things. Now Spring Security, we know that. So what is security, filter chains, all these things. They segregated so many things like this. Spring Artificial Intelligence, they started adding things related to artificial intelligence also. Yeah. Okay, don't worry about all this. So, but you have to be strong in the Spring Core and Spring Boot first, then automatically these are all things like small functionalities you are using as part of Spring Boot. Okay, so that is what. Now let's understand this statement. Spring Cloud provides, now understand guys, what it is saying. Spring Cloud is providing tools for developers to quickly build some of the common patterns in distributed systems. In distributed systems is nothing but microservices architecture. Distribution means what? You are just distributing work to your friends. To complete a final task, to complete everything, sometimes what we will do, we will distribute among us, right? So that finally you are making, I mean, execution is very quickly or something like that. So distributed systems is nothing but microservices architecture. Okay. So now here they are saying like configuration. So what Spring Cloud is providing the tools related to is configuration of the management. Okay. Service discovery. So what is the meaning of configuration management? We are going to do as part of API gateway also. Service discovery is all about, this one. We will come back, service registry and service discovery. Circuit breakers, we will discuss all these things. Intelligent routing is done by the whom? API gateway by using load balancing, all these things. So that is what they are saying. Now you are understanding Spring Cloud is not like regular cloud computing. Spring Cloud is providing, Spring Cloud, their intention is they are supporting applications where you are going to use as part of the cloud deployment level or something like that. They given some such a way this name. Because most of the times microservices nowadays people are using or deploying on the cloud environments only in most of the companies. Okay, short-lived microservices, all these things. Coordination, distributed, boilerplate, leave it. See, here, Spring Cloud features, they are talking about how can you route your request, how can you load balancing your request, how can you find out your, okay, request and responses. These are all things they are talking. They are not talking about regular AWS or like AWS cloud computing, all these things. So don't confuse. Spring Cloud is not a cloud computing similar to AWS. Spring Cloud is all about under the Spring Cloud, Spring Framework team provided tools to support distributed systems, nothing but microservices architecture projects. They provided a lot of functionalities and tools. Those are all we are calling as Spring Cloud. Okay. So anyway, so that's why these are all API, gateway, config server, service register, whatever you can see here. Now these are all, okay, libraries, or these are all functionalities, predefined functionalities we are going to get from the Springboot or Spring Cloud. Spring Cloud. But overall, everything again, Spring Boot only. Overall, again, everything is Spring Boot only, the functionality wise. Okay, fine. Now let's go and see what is created as part of a simple. So now I'm exploring API gateway application, what we created. Okay, go to the properties file. Okay, they were given by default nowadays this name. Can I give a port? Server.port equal to, I'll give something like this. Okay, fine. Okay, so what I will do here, these are all internally configured Maven dependencies with respect to the project called as gateway. Once you created gateway application, these are all jar files being available. Okay, so just have a look here. What are the jar files being downloaded and everything? Internal Tomcat server and Spring Core, Spring Web, Spring Boot, DevTools. We added Spring Boot Starter. So Spring Boot Starter Web. So that means gateway is by default a every web application only. But they added some extra features with respect to request routing, all these things based on the microservices architecture. Okay, fine. So let's see here how what we are going to do with the gateway. We have to understand now. Now, first thing is, now we have to send request via gateway to the actual microservice level. So user or order, whatever it is. Now we have to involve gateway to send a request. So we will send request from the postman. Now first request should go to this time gateway, and internally gateway will route that request to the respective microservice based on our configuration. So that will be called as routing configuration. So here you have to take a dependency called as gateway. So then finish creating a project. Fine. So now you have to do routing configuration. See, this is microservices is also going to involve lot of new terminology and new concepts, new topics, and new extra properties also. So many properties it will involve. It's very difficult to remember property names always, and it's very difficult to remember each and every property exactly. Okay, the coding wise and all these things, but you have to be understand the functionality of each component as part of the microservices architecture. You have to be very clear with respect to theory, what you are going to do as part of the practical implementation like that. So when people are asking how you are managing your microservices, can you explain your microservices architecture project? Or can you explain Springboot microservices architecture? Then at least you should be in a situation telling like client, what is gateway, what is the functionality of gateway, what internally gateway will do when a request comes, what. So at least you should be in a situation like, I will do some configuration inside the gateway application by using some predefined properties. Okay, there I will give routing configuration. So based on that routing configuration, whenever a request coming from client to gateway, gateway will verify routing configuration, what we configured, and based on that, it will try to send that request to respective microservice. So like that, you should be in a situation explaining in such a way. No need to tell them what is that exact property name. It's very difficult also remembering, because here you will see couple of properties. Tomorrow cloud service registry level, you will see some couple of other properties, predefined properties. Similarly, config server level, we will see some other. Similarly, circuit breaker level, we will see a lot of new predefined properties. So remembering all these things is very difficult, but you have to be explain them very clearly, which component functionality is what, at what time, what it will do. You have to explain them at least by theory, by using some practical words or practical examples. That is what they will expect in most of the microservices interview questions, because microservices is not a programming. Microservices is not a technology. Microservices is all about an architecture, how you are managing the web applications or the actual web applications. It's an architecture, just only management. Okay, so how to do this routing configuration? Here it is. How many microservices we have as of now? 3 microservices we have. Even whatever we are doing here, we will remove that later also. I will come back to that point. Okay. So what you have to routing configuration. What is the meaning of routing? Here it is request routing. So that means whenever a request received by the gateway application from the client, what gateway will do is, what is the routing configuration we did for that incoming URL. Okay, so what I'm going to do here it is, I'm taking help of predefined, not predefined, from the previous batch thing. I'll explain what is the things here it is. Now assume this is user microservice. Okay, we are doing routing configuration for which microservice now? User microservice. So see here, spring.cloud. That's what I told you. Now going further, you will see everywhere spring.cloud. Okay. So spring.cloud gateway. Inside the gateway, we are doing the routes, means routing. You are doing the routing. So routing configuration as a array of values. So for first routing, you give an ID as user route or whatever it is. You can give any name, here it is. And this, whatever the configuration I am doing here, is it applicable? I am doing this routing for the user microservice. I am doing for which microservice? User microservice. So here you can give any routing ID. Okay, fine. And URI point of view, HTTP :localhost, I am telling to the gateway. Okay, I'll go from down. So assume we have to configure these details in the API gateway, like I am doing route number 1. So index array of values, index starts from the 0. So that means you are making routing configuration, first routing configuration, and you give an ID as user hyphen service for that. You can give ABC XYZ also, it will work. But it's better to give for which microservice you are doing the configuration, routing configuration, that name itself here also. Okay, fine. Now you are telling to the gateway and you are configuring as part of the gateway is whenever there is a request came with /user. For example, our agenda is what? This is what our agenda, right? So finally we are making only one port number we are sharing with the client applications, only one port number, right? So now request came localhost 8888/user registration, localhost 8888 order create like that. So in this case, what you are trying to do here it is, you are trying to say in case after port number, if there is a context path available /user, that is what you are mentioning here it is. So you can move to this next line also, no problem. Okay, you're telling like in case the path came with /user. Okay, the example I'll take localhost colon. What is the port number of API gateway? 8888/user/ what is the actual REST service register? Okay. Yeah. So in case a request came from the client like this, now what it will do is it will identify what is the context path after the port number, after the gateway port number /user. It will identify that path. So once a request reached with /user, then you are telling like that request has to be routed to which port number? I mean, that request has to be routed to this host, and on this host, on this port, whatever the application is running, there you are routing that. But is this the good practice? That means, but we are having how many instances? 3. Tomorrow it might be 10. Tomorrow it might be, okay, 5, 6. So automatically we can scale up. But if you are hard coding we are hard coding the values here or not? Hard coding means providing fixed values. It has to be dynamic. Today it might be 8001, tomorrow it might be something else, or I have to apply load balancing, all these things. So individually by using gateway, we cannot achieve that auto routing based on the n number of instances. For that, we have to take help of service registry concept. So we have to take this help, service registry. So I will introduce that tomorrow. So then once you involve the service registry, then with the combination of API gateway and service registry, even you no need to give this one also. No need to give anything. Once request reaches to the gateway will connect it to the service registry and it will ask service registry, hey, how many services available for so and so things. Like that, there is a concept I'll explain tomorrow. So then even you no need to give this one also. So right now, we don't have any service registry introduced as part of our architecture. So that's why we are going with manual routing. So now let me copy paste this inside properties file of gateway. So for which microservice we are doing all this? These are all latest version problems. Okay, let's try first. We will see. Latest version means whenever you are taking Springboot version, so sometimes one version to another version, they will rename the file names and everything. So 3.2.5, I think it is released only last month, or maybe we will see that. Okay. So first let's see with respect to one microservice, then the remaining is all about copy paste and rename the values like that. First, we will try to understand with respect to one microservice, is it working or not? Okay, so let me start my user microservice now. So how many instances I am starting of user now? 3. I just started as it is 3, but we configured only for the 8001. So in case if you want to make sure some other extra configuration, you have to do that to route it to 8000 to all these things. You have to make some other things, but that's what I'm telling you. Once you are involving service registry, and one more thing is we should not hard code port numbers for any microservice, because tomorrow 8001 may not available as part of the user microservice. There are some other concepts available. We will discuss those things tomorrow. But at least step number 1, is it working or not manually, we will see. So your Tomcat server started with context path of empty. So if you want, you can give a context path also. Okay, so let me do one thing. I'll take same request, duplicate. So what is the port number? 8888, right? So here body and all, everything is same. Only thing is with respect to client point of view, you are making all microservices, okay, looking as a single web application by providing single port number, all these things like that. But executing act, okay, the body. So this is all comes under the what? The actual microservice base path. The actual microservice base path and the actual REST service URI. So only thing is, in case if you are having anything like context path you given in your gateway level, then this is all comes under the gateway. This comes under the actual microservice base path. The actual microservice base path and actual REST service URI, what you will use as well, act like this. Simple, guys. So in this case, instead of you are saying localhost 8002, and to now with respect to order 8005, with respect to payment 8010, are you going to give 8001, 8010, 8005 to the client people? No, right? So we have to give always a single host name with respect to single port number like that to the external people or to the client people. So that's why we are taking help of API gateway. Here it is. So 88, let me take this one like this. So this is the URI I have created. Okay, let me send the request. Any surprises? We'll see. Something is there. No resource found exception, no static resource user / register. So something routing problem. These are the properties. I can take 3.2.4. Is it going to work? So this is what problem with the, I'll do one thing. Okay, got it. Okay, now what happened? The request is routed to the microservice of user, or you sent request to which port number? 8888. So definitely then the request reached to the gateway or not? So then what gateway is doing? If you want, I can show here API gateway. You can add a property here, logging dot level dot org dot spring framework dot cloud equal to debug. You are practicing all these things. Okay, so I will show you whether it is true or not. Here some logs will be printed now. Okay, so let's send the request now one more time. Okay, somewhat you got 200 okay and everything. Now see here, it is reached to which port number? I mean, which microservice, user microservice or not? Are you able to see the queries running on the user microservice or not? Right? So let me go to the console of, see from here you can switch to one console to another console. Okay. So just go here. So how many instances of user microservice is running? 1, 2, 3. Fourth one is gateway. Okay. The fourth one is, you can see that. Yeah, this one, gateway. Okay. From here, now it is what? Gateway. If you see here, I think it's not being added. I'll do one thing. Yeah, if you see here, this is the logs, console logs of which application? Gateway application. Okay. So if you see here, the request what we sent, post request to the double I, and with respect to slash user, slash register. Now it reached to the gateway or not? So it is saying like gateway internally request received with post for the path of slash user slash register. Then map put to, see here. So there is a routing available. So that's why it is saying map and completed 200. Okay. That means the request is routed successfully to respective microservice and the request executed on the respective microservice. And finally, the response again came to the gateway and gateway forwarded response to the client. So that is what it is trying to say now. Now, similarly, if I want to make sure same thing for the order API, can I do? So what you have to do? One more routing you are doing. One more application, one more ID. So that's what you have to pass the values here it is. One routing. So index starts from the 0. That's why you have to take from 0 here. Now what you are doing here? Order service. And you are saying like any request came with slash order, it has to route it to 8005. Okay, like that. We are going to give the configuration. But is this the practice what we are doing 8005, 8001 giving values here? So tomorrow if you have 20 port numbers, are we going to configure 20 times routing configuration here? No, it's a bad practice because assume you given 20 also, but one fine day I reduced it to 10 instances. I stopped 10 instances. Then, but still in the routing configuration level, how many values available? 20 values available. As a manual point of view, you given 20 values to me. 20 services available. I am distributing the request. But all of sudden 10 services you stopped it. But I have 20 services information. But whenever I am sending a request to the one of the instance, by the time it is already stopped, then what I will get response, client will get the response. Service is not available, some bad errors, exceptions you will get, right? So that means providing values here with respect to hard coded values, fixed values is a okay, something like solution. We have to avoid this one also. If whenever I got a request, I have to dynamically route request to available instances, whether it is 2 or 10, 15. Okay, like that, we have to do that. We will do that by using service registry. We have to take help of service registry. We will come back. Okay, this is all about order microservice. Similarly, can we do for the payment? Even we will delete these guys. Okay. So second, see that's why they give it. They are showing this compile time error. Why? Here giving route one. They are saying like duplicate property. Simple. Okay, here you are writing this, you are all writing for the payment. So any request came with payment, you have to do, it has to route it to 8010. But in this case, what is the drawback? The request is always routing to the 8001, not routing to the 8002, 8003. For that, again, you have to do some lot of extra configuration. I don't want to go that much level because even providing manual port numbers, fixed values as a port numbers inside the API gateway is not a recommended solution. So that's why I'm just showing you a manual effort today, tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Even I'll remove all these things. Then we will bring up a concept called as load balancing. Internally, the request will be routed to the available instance. Whatever available, dynamically the request will be routed, irrespective of port numbers. So all these things, we will see that part. First, we will complete until this. Okay, fine. Now let me start my order payment also. Okay, so let me go with this now. Order creation. So what it is? 8000, sorry, 8888, right? So is it started first of all order? Yeah. So let me send the request now. So order created successfully. From where you are getting this message? From the order microservice or not, right? So in earlier case, user created successfully. So see here now, I'm collecting all the URLs. URL number 1. URL number 2. So similarly, login also I can take, duplicate. So here I'll give 888888. Okay, net banking login failed. Whatever it is, response you are getting or not. That means that username password is not available. That's why you got it. If you given proper one, then you will get it. But you got the expected response or not. So now let me collect this URL. Now tell me, is this looks like a single project or multiple projects? How you are saying like, see, everything is like 888888. So now you will feel all your 40-50 microservices are running on a running as a single web application only. But internally it is n number of microservices. Okay. For example, Aju, now if you given URLs like this to the front end people, is it somehow looking good? I mean, not good. First of all, no one will accept. It's not. I'll do one thing. Eight 8001, 8005, 8010. So in this case, is it looks like a good solution? Who knows? Today it might be 8001, tomorrow 8002. So that means, are you going to give hundreds of URLs to the client people? No, it's not at all acceptable solution, right? So that's why you are making all the API calls together or reaching via always gateway, so that you are centralizing API calls, request and responses with respect to routing all these things. So what you can do here, it is just follow this one. Okay, so I just provided here, I'll upload this running notes. Even in material also, it's there. Probably in material, you may not find out this word MVC. The reason is we created gateway on very latest version of Springboot starter. So 3.2.5. But I was created that probably before 3.1 or something at that time. So probably you may not find out. Even in case required, I will also modify the material. But please refer this one. So only thing is you will miss MVC there. They are adding nowadays something related to reactive programming, servlet programming. There are few things they are adding as part of the Spring Boot. So MVC is all about servlet based programming. Now they are adding couple of other things as a reactive programming. They are segregating the things. One fine day, I don't think they will keep servlet based programming in the Spring Boot. They are giving priority to the reactive based programming, but we are not going to take here, but it's not like that. Right now they will remove everything, but copy paste concepts only. Concept is different. Okay, there is a concept is getting popular nowadays called as reactive programming, not React.js, reactive programming. So that's why they are segregating the things like a servlet based, reactive based point of view. One fine day they will remove. I mean, that is my assumption. I don't have any proof also for that. So why? Because they are segregating the things means on the existing, they are giving priority to something else means slowly they are going to bring down the value of this one and they will deprecate it and they will give priority to reactive programming that will give better performance. There are a lot of other practices. So that's why it's always lifetime learning. As a software developer, don't think like only one time learning. One version to another version, so many things will change. For that, you have to always have a look. You have to always have a look what is changing, what's happening when you are doing the jobs also. Otherwise, when you are moving to once you are working 4 or 5 years in one company, and when you are attending the interview, in that 4 years, whatever you did in your current project is already gone and so many things came into the picture and you will not be selected immediately like that. So that's why when you are doing the things also, working also, please have a look always what's being changing from one version to another version. It's most important thing we have to make sure. Okay, so please follow this running notes in case if it is 3.2.5 version, we are also using, you are also using in our in your local practice level, then use this one. Okay, so in case required, I will change the material also slowly, but you can follow this running notes for time being. That's all for today. So tomorrow we will take service registry also. I will explain what is, and then we will integrate all service, okay, all microservices with the service registry and then gateway with service registry. And we will see how we are automatically routing a request to available instances by avoiding the fixed port numbers, all these things, then only we can understand. Okay, so we will see that part tomorrow. Let's connect on tomorrow. So any doubts for online? Oh my God. Who is this person? Why are you missing classes? This India. First of all, give your proper names. Otherwise, I will not answer your questions. That's why I did not answer your question. Who is this youth fellow? First, maintain discipline. Okay, first maintain giving your names. Who the hell are you, first of all? I will not answer your this kind of things. Okay, give your proper names, ask doubts, then I can take your doubts and I can explain you. And this is what provided you day before yesterday, how to create port numbers and all these things. You are missing the class and you are giving the wrong names and you are asking useless questions. So one port number you can access n number of requests. It's not like that. Internally, they will use multi-threading, multi-processing. Okay, as part of internal Spring web framework, all these things. On on one port number, you can send any number of requests. You can open 2-3 browsers, send request to the same port number. It's not like that. Okay. You can send any number of requests, but there is at one point of time, there will limit will be thresholded. So then you have to maintain other instances. Otherwise, the queue time, waiting time will be increased. running, slowly response will come. To avoid that only, we are making one more instance is available and we are routing the request like that. That is why microservices is got popular. Okay, thanks. Bye. Good.